welcome to another exciting show. We're all over. Well, we're so excited it's beyond belief. So today we've got our Fockham minister without portfolio, but he's got a plastic bag instead.
Yes.
It's all right. It's Robert. Was it the mint in reverse?
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Deb and Chris. Thank you. And hello to everybody in turn chat, all my brothers and sisters of the resistance, you know.
We're all like,
Yes, precisely, yeah, the resistance, yeah.
Up the resistance if it isn't raining.
Yes, precisely.
Right. Yeah. So that's because, you know, and we've got B on the winning team.
Yes.
Yes.
So who's got a very good show on Sunday.
Sunday night.
Yeah, he went on last night.
Yes.
And then he was on the other Deb Hatswell.
Yes.
The poor lady with the big foot. You know, she says she's got big foot.
Yeah.
Expert,
good God.
You know.
Oh, blimey.
Anyway, what happened yesterday, I went on a wild ramble. All wild plants. And I was hoping to show you pictures. Robert took pictures on the screen. The trouble with converting it over with hey, what's it? Your microphone's dead.
Who, mine?
No, mine.
Mine.
I said you're having a bit of trouble with your sound at the moment, Chris.
Is it? Is that?
Is that better?
Is that better?
You're okay, Robert. Yeah.
Yeah, everything okay?
You're okay now. That's fine.
Yes, thanks, Deb.
No worries.
Okay.
Went on this ramble, and it was really good. Wild plants and things like that. I go on another one. It's Standon, which they say it's near Ware, but it's actually near Puckeridge in Hertfordshire. And of course, I showed off this marvellous piece of engineering.
Oh,
now
yes.
look at that. I mean, there's all these people getting their posh stones out. Poor sod. Let's give him a few pence. But
Yeah, let's give him a cup of tea.
there it is. I'll tell you something though. Talking about that, it did not bloody work well. I put it on, and it's too efficient. Now it sounds as if I'm bragging. This thing, it had a flame leaping out the top. It really did my sort of like mess tin thing I had.
Yeah.
And it's a Dutch thing. And I couldn't hold it because it was so hot. And people come to me and say, "Excuse me, could you pour some water for me, please?" But it's just, I've got to do a few little design things, but this costs a fortune to make, you know.
Oh yeah. Breaks the bank, that.
And drink a couple of tins of Guinness to get that. So, you know, it was tough times. But anyway, on with the shows. So I was going to say I've been worshipping our gracious dear leader. That is William of the Toxic Arm Brew, you know, William Gates, who does such marvellous software. I don't think, because just before we came on, my computer decided to do an update. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, Robert, without more ado, you're sort of not here to socially observe.
No, you've gone again.
Has he gone?
Yeah,
How's
well,
that?
I can still hear you vaguely, though.
no, I couldn't hear anything then.
Yeah.
Bloody computer. Sorry. Right. How's that? Is that better?
That's a bit better, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Right. I think I'll fiddle around with the sound as other people are talking.
Okay.
I sound it. I'm fiddling around with it. So, Robert, you've noticed one or two things. Like yesterday, I noticed, and I've noticed this a lot now, where once upon a time it would be cold, and then the sun would come out and it gradually get warm. It would be over a period of time, a couple of hours. It was gradual. Now, yesterday morning, it was not exactly. I mean, I had a shirt, a pullover, and my M65 Austrian jacket.
Okay.
And I was just right. You know, it wasn't wasn't that cold, but it was a little bit of a chill in you.
Yeah.
And then we finished the walk around, looking at the wild plants and things like that, and the medicinal things that you can do with. I had dandelion root coffee, beautiful,
Is it nice?
very nice.
I'm going
And
to
if
pull
you had
that
the
dandelion up out of my
Yeah.
plant salad.
Yeah.
yes, you need a dehydrator to dehydrate the root,
Right.
or you leave it in your oven, and you powder it. And they call it in America Confederate coffee because what the
Yes.
Confederate Army used to drink. It was bloody nice, I can tell you that. I could be addicted to that. And it
Right.
has all the good stuff. It's not bad for you like normal coffee is. This is good stuff.
Right.
But I was going to say, we went back to the pub afterwards and the sun came out and suddenly the temperature just sort of went whoosh, shot up. And I drove to Stanton with my heater on in my car. I drove home with the window open with the heater off and my arm out the window. That's
Yeah.
how hot
Bloody
it was.
hell. Jesus.
That is weird.
Mm.
And you've noticed quite a few things, like, for example, strange things where you are, in the part of London where you are, where it's a subtle agenda. So far away, Robert.
Cool.
Okay, I mean, I think like most, I think of, you could call it awakening or whatever you want to call it, but it's, you gradually start staring up at the sky and wondering what the hell's going on. I mean, as I was, we were chatting a little bit before about seeing my first nighttime chemtrail, and it was literally like something out of Fantasia, where Mickey Mouse throws his wand or casts his wand, and then you get this almost glitter trail that's almost fluorescent through the sky. Yesterday I was standing in the park, and hello everybody that's listening from the stand in the park, you guys in Finchley, big love, all that. And I noticed that there was an anarchy sign in the sky over where we were sitting. We were sitting outside enjoying the sun and whatever else, and I mean, an anarchy sign, and it couldn't have been clearer. I mean, I know that they've been monkeying around with things like Star of Davids and whatever else and all that kind of thing, but it's that's actually some quite skilled piloting, that is, I mean, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I know.
There is no end to their there's no end to their effery, we call it. There's no end to their tomfoolery or malevolent behavior, and I don't think one can put anything past these people at all.
Right.
And it's I'll butcher the quote, but it's attributed to J. Edgar Hoover, or as we call him, the Queen of Hearts. Now, if you he said most people faced with a conspiracy so outrageous won't believe it, and they'll continue not to believe it, and that's the way they slip things past us. Their hubris is absolutely unbelievable. And it comes down to things like legislation. ULEZ is another great case in point. It's another great case in point. Who would have thought that they would get that past the normal, everyday, common sense people?
I know.
I mean, how intelligent is air? An air molecule, does it stay where it's put? I mean, if it's a little bit like climate change as well. And some girl was protesting climate change when I was working on my last job, and she was saying, "Do you believe in climate change?" And I went, "Yeah, I can change the climate." She goes, "What?" I went, and that was it. I said, "I'll just change the climate." And this is the sort of thing that these people, well, they don't have our sense of humor, Chris and Deb, though. They don't have their sense of humor. But the point is that people have literally unplugged what was left of their cognitive antenna. They've literally just unplugged it, if they had one at all. I think we're all born with one. We're all born with you call it a built-in bullshit detector, if you want to call it that.
Yes.
But literally people just suspend that. And I've decided to march a lonely path on my own, and whoever can just jump on the fun train with me can do that. But I think when I was chatting away with somebody on a forum today, talking about using small groups, very small cells, like the SAS, let's say, for instance, they don't move around in big platoons and things like that. There's 3 and 5 and 7. A group of 7 is the maximum, I think.
Yeah.
And they keep their own counsel in terms of being self-sufficient and self-contained.
Yeah.
And that's how we win, because it's a harder bunch of targets to hit.
Yeah.
Because you can't use a scattergun to hit people that are using multi-level attacks on multi-level defenses, we should call them, against the powers that should not be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on there, because that's actually the way the North Vietnamese worked against the Americans. They had squads of 3 they worked in. So, and they were on a need-to-know basis. So when they and they didn't have a rank system like, the Army of America, where they've got sergeants and corporals and God knows what. It was just 3 people who got on very, very well, who worked in breeds, and it was very good. I think the IRA did that as well, and the Welsh,
very much so.
Yes, the IRA learnt off the Welsh nationalists.
Right, that's interesting.
I'm not praising anybody or anything like that. I'm just making shall we say, a general note. The thing is, small groups do work, but that's why the establishment wants to put you into a group, a big group.
Yes, easier to hurt.
Yeah.
Easier to hurt.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, what?
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there, but I like the word community. Oh, it's this community.
Yeah,
that
precisely.
Community.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you're a member of that community, are you? No.
The anti-vax community. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes.
That's. I mean, as if we could be a community. I think the people that are not anti-vax, pro-choice, you could call it, pro-common sense. They come from such a diverse group of people. You get what I call the very straight, right down the line types that are doctors and work in professions or whatever you want to call it. And then you've got the set of people that are a little bit more free thinking, shall we say, that wouldn't be caught dead outside of a pair of Birkenstocks, that type, and then everybody in between. So I don't think you can actually pigeonhole, and that's probably one of the problems that they're facing at the moment, which is why maybe one of the reasons that they had to push that little bit harder. I mean, they unplugged the COVID scenario straight away and then plugged in. They have plug and play systems or paradigms, methodologies. So they plugged in the Ukrainian one, and the next one will be the climate one. So that may be our very next lockdown. They may start spraying stuff into the air that's, let's say, pink, and it's just a relatively harmless pink powder. And it will cover people's cars, and when you walk out, it'll look like somebody sprayed the place pink. Yeah. And then they'll say, stay in your homes. You've got to stay in your homes. This is poisonous. It's a game. It's a playbook that I don't think they'll ever leave, because it works. Yeah, and fear works as well, and it makes people scared. People, when they're frightened, don't make good decisions, and they remain off balance as well. Yeah. But as we know, fear, is false evidence appearing real. Yes. And as long as we cling to that, and as long as we recognize that, then it's a good start for most people. It's a good start for most people.
I think you've got to listen to stuff, and then you question it first before you start accepting what you're being told.
Absolutely.
I've started doing that for the last couple of years now. Well, 3 years. I'm just like, no, it's great. It's gradually sort of come in since 9/11. Yeah. I've started questioning stuff a bit more, but now it's just, I think of what the opposite story is to what they're showing you.
Precisely.
Not as though I watch the news. I'm not a news person. I don't entertain. It's on in the house, but I don't take any notice of it.
Well, it's not really news, Deb. It's old. It's old. That's it. It's reheated leftovers. Yeah, and they've been doing that for years and years. Well, that's what it is. That's what it is. Bubble and squeak. Bubble and squeak for the eyes and the ears. And they've been doing that for years. Let's not kid ourselves. They've been doing it since John Pilger was reporting on the Vietnam War. Even before that, whoever reported on the Korean War and other conflicts, and Mossadegh in 53 in Iran, and then Allende after him. They've only just started admitting, the CIA that is, that they've been busted. Yeah, we did do that. It was regime change. It was for the good of the world and to rid the world and that part of the world from communism. I said, well, what else was it? I said, well, we just happened to trip over this massive big bag of oil that we put into our tankers. But that was all. We didn't do anything else, I swear. And also Anthony Eden tried to bump off NASA as well. And he was, and obviously the dead men can't be sued, but and his estate is in a trust, so we can't touch that. But it was admitted that he was caught with MI6 and MI5 and the CIA, and probably our friends that can't be criticized. Jehovah's
Witnesses.
The people of the burnt offering, shall we say? Yeah. So maybe that lot as well. You never know. And these people don't develop these skills out of the clear blue sky. No. They develop the skills by using. You learn by doing. And this is what they've been doing for years, maybe even centuries. That won't surprise me.
Because President, was it Nasser of Egypt? I mean, that was the 1956 Suez crisis.
Yes.
And I remember my dad saying, because you remembered it, and he said, they said this country could not survive more than 3 weeks if the Suez Canal was shut. Yeah. Well, that was complete rubbish, because they go around bottom of Africa, up and round. So
absolutely.
Shit of the bull.
It's a little bit like the scare story with the Ukraine, that all of a sudden, all of our bread from Sainsbury's and Waitrose and Tesco's came from the Ukraine, came from this great big wheat bread basket. And it's nothing of the sort. Absolutely nothing of the sort. If it comes from anywhere, it comes from or Russia, or both. And there are so many people that will just swallow it whole, swallow anything that's put on their plate whole, without giving. And it doesn't need to pass the smell test. They won't lift the plate up, metaphorically speaking, and have a smell. Oh, that smells a bit off. In fact, that doesn't just smell off; it's walking off the plate.
That's what they do. Throw their hands up and go, "Oh my God, we're going to run out of bread."
Precisely. The toilet roll thing is another thing. The loo roll thing as well.
In this country.
Precisely. And somebody sent a great meme around, and they said, this is why the Saudis aren't panicking about COVID. And they put the toilet paper up on one side of the photograph and a bidet on the other. Or a douche or whatever it was. And that was quite funny. I mean, and it is a practical solution. It may be a meme, it may be funny, but it's a practical solution to something that we can get around quite easily. We can get around it quite easily.
Well, that's right. I mean, I went into Home Bargains the other day, and I couldn't believe it. They're stacked almost up to the ceiling with toilet rolls.
Yeah. Amazing.
There's an Indian restaurant opening next door or something on.
Yes.
What's going on?
Yeah, precisely.
Are they going to announce something very scary on the news? Like the world will be ending at 4 o'clock on Friday. Oh, blimey, back get some toilet roll. But it's like the Eurovision Pongo competition or the Eurovision Song competition. Now, I only found out last night that it was actually on when was it? I don't know, but because I ain't got a telly.
Saturday night.
Now, Sweden and Finland, I don't know if they joined NATO, but they've applied to become part of NATO.
Yes, I think they have applied.
And guess who comes first? It's Sweden.
I'm surprised it wasn't the Ukraine, actually.
Yeah.
The singing soldiers, the singing soldiers,
Guess who comes third? It's the country we're not allowed to criticise.
Really?
Well. Yes, the puppet master.
Who are geographically nowhere near Europe, I might add.
Yeah, this is what. Yeah, somebody else said that. What's that got to do with Europe?
They compete in the Champions League as well, which is, and you think, hang on, really?
Yeah.
I mean, other countries, Egypt, other people that might surround them, might have a good argument. Football teams from Algeria, let's say, for instance, and Morocco they're geographically actually closer to Europe.
Yeah.
Yes. And they would have a very, 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 very good case for saying, actually, going to FIFA or UEFA or whoever runs the Champions League and saying, actually, we need to be included, otherwise we're suing.
Well, that's right, because I think when you look at Morocco is in the Straits of Gibraltar.
Yes.
Divided from Europe. And look
Precisely.
at Turkey. Now, Turkey's half in Europe. Russia's in Europe.
Right.
There's a lot of countries in Europe.
Precisely.
And it really makes me laugh. You know, I mean, the Eurovision Song Contest, I actually think that torturers probably use that. You know, they tie someone to a seat and put the television in front of them and put the Eurovision Song Contest on. And with about 10 minutes, they'll crack, you know. Got so much more of it.
Who is it now that I think the American people at Guantanamo Bay used to play really sort of hard metal music at very, very loud volumes for these poor. I mean, because I know that you like your German sort of grungy metal, don't you? You guys like that, but they would have thought. But actually, what we could do is play Ross Abbott's "Atmosphere," and that would kill you, wouldn't it? You'd actually be begging them for them to rip your fingernails out as opposed to not doing that.
I'll do it myself.
Precisely. Yeah, but it's the weirdest thing. I mean, there's so many different things that have been happening that everybody is starting to notice now, whether they admit it in the broader concept to their friends or whatever, or whether they're just thinking it internally. They're actually thinking, well, don't these people look a bit grey? Don't their eyes look like pandas, these people? And my youngest brother, who still lives up in Birmingham, actually mentioned that to me. He mentioned how much more aggressive people are in the gym when they're arguing over things like machines. Instead of just waiting for the leg machine to become available, they start a row. I saw a chap in a little micro Fiat or whatever they call it, little Fiat 500, and he was barging around as if he was driving a Humvee, taking up so much space on the road. And when he was asked to kind of pull over, he started yelling and screaming out of his window, and you could feel the smoke coming off the top of the poor chap's head. And I thought, well, I wouldn't like to leap to any conclusions, but I would actually say that maybe he wouldn't have been like that 18 months ago, perhaps. I hazard a guess that maybe.
You're right. Yeah. I think you're right. I've noticed this a lot more. I'm more kind of, as a fellow, I went out the other day and I couldn't believe it. I was driving along, and the amount of loony drivers, people driving as if they're in a getaway car.
Yes.
Literally, they're in a getaway, screaming their tyres round and roundabout and driving as if they just, grabbed a lot of loot from the bank. I mean, it was
amazing.
They're driving like they've got to get, like they've got a pregnant woman in the passenger seat. They've got to get where they're going.
Or as if they really, really need the toilet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their
car is the toilet.
It just goes to prove, if anybody remains in any doubt, that these things are they're mood altering, gene altering, spirit altering. They're altering our mapping as people, as human beings. And it's not for the good. And the DNA you could, but I think it drills down deeper than that, because I think it manifests itself in just the normal interaction. Obviously, that's linked with DNA, but I'm talking about as deeply as the spiritual side of things. There are people that I just no longer have any faith in anything. They can't read a sentence without it being on a screen. Sorry, Deb. They can't read a sentence without it being on a screen. They can't hold a conversation for any more than a very, very short amount of time. They seem to be completely in need of distraction. And it wasn't good in previous times, but it's gotten really bad now. It's gotten really bad now. And you notice that everywhere you go. By the way, before I do anything else, I'd like to make a disclaimer that the views expressed are only mine and not of any prospective employer, just in case.
Just Robert's views there.
Yes, precisely, absolutely.
But we're all agreeing with him anyway.
Should you have a quick shufty in chat?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd like to say hello to a few people if we could as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got Kat Ellsworth. She's going to get a brownie point. Look, nice and punctual tonight. No lines. So,
You get a gold
hello,
brownie
Kath.
point.
Hello, Kath.
Hello, Kath. And who else we got? We got Mark Wright. We haven't got our man from rugby this week. What's happened to him?
I don't know.
I think he's been spear tackled.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Now we got here Mark Wright. So we got
Mike Wright.
Mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike Wright.
Mike Wright. So we've got who else? Jojo. We got Kat again. She's in there. Ancient Ruby.
Hello, Ruby. Hello, Jojo. Hello, Ralph.
There she is. Good evening, Chris Deb. Hey. Oh, and from no jokes about sheep, please, because we got our regular from New Zealand. Here he is. Good morning to all. Hello, Stig.
Stig.
Has he got his jammies and his robe on, Stig? And his little slippers?
Right, yeah. No, it's, I don't know. It's 7:30 over there. I'm not sure.
Oh, right. I wonder if he's had his coffee yet, actually. Yeah.
No.
The first country to have a horse as prime minister, isn't that amazing? I think it was.
This is true. This is true. And the first prime minister that could eat an apple through a tennis racket as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, actually, her husband, he should have gone to Specsavers, I think.
I'd heard that they'd postponed their nuptials. I heard that they had actually, was she supposed to be getting married and they delayed it because of political responsibilities, or was that somebody else?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to find. I'd actually heard that somewhere. Maybe it was I was just living in hope for to saving that fella from a fate worse than being bitten to death, you know.
As a bloke, can you imagine coming up and looking round and seeing the ex-prime minister of New Zealand next to you in bed? Oh no!
Oh my God!
Paul Green has come out. He says a certain man who lives in Wales. Yes, I know who that is. Has to as a GoFundMe page. Mention his name. Comment deleted. Yes, we got to be careful. His name.
RDH.
Yes. Radio Albion.
Right. I see. Okay.
And it's there was a king called Longshanks, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. Yeah. There was a king called Longshanks. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, he needs funding apparently.
Oh, right, okay.
As Kat said it, don't mention that. You know,
rhyming slang, very nice. Yeah,
plenty of tabloids about if we run out a loo roll. Yeah, but the print comes off on your bum, doesn't it?
I answered that one. I said there'll be more shit that comes off the paper than goes on it.
Fantastic.
She had an answer for that.
I used Star Trek toilet paper because it gets all the Klingons out.
There is I read a book called it was called Short Timers, and it was made into Full Metal Jacket, the movie. They made a screenplay out of it, and it was they called the US Marine Corps call their toilet paper, they call it John Wayne. And this one fella said, why? So it's rough, tough, and doesn't take any shit.
I like that.
Yeah, but it's a great book, by that, and it's a very short book if you ever get the chance to read it.
Right.
Very, very good book.
I'll be jotting down after this.
Yes, yeah.
Have a list.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about John Wayne, he didn't act, did he? He was just John Wayne, everything.
Absolutely not.
Did you ever see that the Ten Commandments?
And he was as bald as he was as follically challenged as Chris and myself as well. It's true. It's absolutely true.
Really?
Everything, he had a wig and everything. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Has anybody ever seen the movie called Trumbo?
No.
About Dalton Trumbo, the screenwriter?
No.
It stars Bryan Cranston, that was in Breaking Bad and all the rest of it. There is this one scene, and it's a true story as well, where he confronts or he basically responds to something that John Wayne said to him at a party. He was saying he was questioning his courage and whatever else. He said, well, at least I served in the war, albeit behind the lines in the intelligence corps, because I'm intelligent. He said, but you fought your war from a lot on the MGM studios.
Yeah.
And apparently he was going to swing for him. And the only person to stop them was the gossip columnist, Hedda Harper. She stopped John Wayne punching Dalton Trumbo, who ended up, by the way, under a different pen name, writing the screenplay, amongst others, for Spartacus.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of trivia there to kick the day off.
Like this trivia.
Yeah. But it's a good movie, though. If you ever Trumbo, it's called. If you ever get the chance to see it, great movie.
No, John Wayne didn't like horses, and he spent most of his film riding a horse.
Amazing, isn't it?
He hated
and he used to kiss his horse's bum, didn't he? He used to lift up the towel and go.
No, that was Louis B. Mayer or Samuel Goldwyn.
Really? Because he said, "Why are you kissing your horse's ass?" He said, "Because I've got cheap lips." I said, "Yes." Why? He said, "Keep you from licking them."
Oh, Jesus. Dear me.
There's a line, and Chris has just crossed it.
Yes, precisely. Yes, precisely. Yeah. Yes.
But as I say, against the Ten Commandments, you hear his golden line was, "He sure was the son of God."
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Get the hell out of here, Judas. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Just went, can you make it a little bit less Texan, John?
He's amazing, and his first name was Marion, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was his first name. His first name was Marion. It was incredible. When he apparently went for a screen test, and one of the producers said to him, he said, "Well, that's a bit of a girl's name." And apparently he played American football, and he was a lineman, so he tackled the fella and knocked the living bejesus out of him. And he said, "You've got the part." He said, "But my ribs are still broken, but you've got the part." Apparently, I don't know if it's another fanciful Hollywood story, but it's yeah.
You don't know, but that'd be a good story if it was.
Yeah.
We're quite international tonight. We've got Yorkshire Rose, who's not in Yorkshire.
Right, okay.
Glad I've called this. Sorry I'm late. Note from parents, please. Love from Alberta, Canada. And we've also got John Basingloan. I'm from America. Yes, he's in America. And 99.999% of my countrymen have no idea the US, at the behest of the UK's oligarchy, fomented a coup in Iran in 1953 to remove the rightfully elected Iranian Prime Minister, what's that? Mossadegh. Yeah. Yes.
Mohammed Mossadegh, who shares a birthday with me, by the way.
Oh.
Really?
Never sent me a card, though.
Miserable son.
Yeah, it was, oddly enough, it was a chap called Kermit Roosevelt, who was the carpetbagger. He literally was almost airlifted into Iran with a carpet bag almost full of cash. And he came back with change. I think they gave him $3 million or something. And he came back with change to the CIA and the ONI, or whatever you want to call it. He said, "Well, that was cheap." Yeah, absolutely. He was a nephew of FDR, I think, right. Kermit Roosevelt. Yeah. But there's a really good documentary or docudrama called Coup 53. If anybody ever gets the chance to watch it, and that kind of fills out what John said. Hello, John, by the way, and I hope you've your Congressional Medal of Honor is still in good shape. I think John would know. John would know that's it. Yeah.
Well, actually, we got someone new in chat. It's Corinne.
We have a
hello, Corinne. Oh, friend of mine. Hello, Corinne.
You know her?
Yeah, I know Corinne. And I'm sorry she's...
Because we've got a lot from...
Oh, right. Okay, that's fantastic. Brilliant. Hi, big hi to Corinne. Nice of you to drop in. Great.
Yeah. And we got someone else from America. Or somewhere, not America. Greetings from across the pond.
Oh, herself. Dory.
Dr. Dolores Cahill spoke on the expected lifespan of people I've taken that. I'm contemplating my 2 kids passing before myself. Oh no!
Horrible, isn't it?
Sorry,
horrible.
Sorry, I really am sorry to hear that. You know? But
hi, Doreen.
yes.
Hi.
But oh, here we are. We got Pandora Chase.
Chase 2.
Yeah,
I got an email right here from Richie Allen listener,
which is me. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, hello there. Hi, thanks for tuning in. Very kind, very kind.
But yes, because you're a Richie Allen listener. I used to listen. I think at 5 o'clock though. It's a bit. Is it 5 till 7? Isn't it or something? Or 5?
Yeah, it's 5 till 7. But you can dip in and out, and I mean, it's usually. To be honest with you, it's almost worth going there just for the comment live page, because people still use it after that. It's somewhat the same as yours, Deb and Chris, that people sometimes actually have a little bit of a chat in your stream after the show's finished.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which is great, really. I mean, and people get to actually get to link up and exchange ideas and have a chat. I mean, we've got some really, really smart people in both this feed and also Richie Allen's feed. I mean, really, really, and I learn a lot from them. Very, very clued up, sharp people.
Switched on.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Well, I actually spoke to a lady. Was yesterday? Yeah, yesterday on this. What's the name? She's got a couple of children, and she hasn't paid her council tax for about a year. Well, I said, well, are you sort of saying? Are you going through the thing like, I'm a sovereign character? She said, no, just ignoring them. She said, this is what we should all do. Just ignore them. I mean, let's face it. If someone came along and said, "Stop the council tax. I'll pay me so much, and I'll take your litter away for you each week." I bet they do a bloody good job of it. A far better job than the council do. And you can educate your own children. It would be a lot cheaper than council tax, and I think your children would get a better education from if you paid out for a tutor to teach them. Because
you're quite right.
Council tax, it's scandalous. It really is a scandal, and they have about as much right to charge you council tax as a supermarket has to charge you. Well, to say, yeah, you owe us so many £100. So why? What have you done?
For a plastic bag, yeah. Precisely. Yeah.
They're PLC. Local councils are PLC.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. There's a reason why our taxes are so high as well. Now, we already pay the average income tax, let's say, an NI, if you put that together as a tax bundle. The average is about between 35 and 40%, maybe 45 if you're really high earner. Now, part of the reason that is so high is because it goes to a stipend to each council. I believe it's about £300 million a year, which figures really, because that's roughly the amount that Barnett lost in 2008 when the Icelandic mechanism went belly up because they were investing there. So it represents double dipping, and I think if we're to fight on any front, it will be. Mark Windows touched upon it. It's the domestic front. It's act locally, I suppose, and affect globally, I think, and then because that's really the only thing we can do. We can't possibly get anywhere near Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, whoever it might be. We can't get near those people. We don't really want to be anywhere. What we need to do is actually need to, instead of cutting branches off and climbing halfway up the tree, which is what that represents, it's actually taking a big axe and start chopping at the roots of the tree, which is what we'll be doing if we start looking into legal and lawful ways of tackling utilities, if we look at council tax as another utility, and it is really, but it represents double and triple dipping, quite simply. And that lady who hasn't paid for a year, she's on quite solid ground. If she handles herself quite well, she might end up actually kicking things into the long grass. With the judges kicking things into the long grass. They can't possibly rule in anybody's favor in her position because in open court, because it then becomes case law. If it becomes case law, good night Vienna. So it's bye-bye to Waltham Forest Council, bye-bye to South Yorkshire Council and every other council. They'll be gone because they won't have a leg to stand on at all. And they won't be gone, but they'll have to manage on the government stipend. So instead of giving themselves massive pensions that go on to all eternity, like an MP's pension, they'll have to actually manage on sort of not exactly bread and water, but they'll have to manage on what everybody else manages on. And then perhaps we'll actually have start living a more abundant lifestyle, I think. We'll have more disposable income.
I think fighting the council, I like what a chap said, that it's to ask them questions and say, I'm willing to pay, providing you answer my questions.
That's it. Condition.
Very, very difficult for them to back out, because you're saying to the court, well, I'm willing to pay, but they haven't answered these questions. I mean, imagine if a supermarket like Tesco's or something sent you a bill for, say, a couple of £100. You say, well, please, how's this for? I haven't ordered anything. And, you know, can you tell me what I bought? I'll pay you if you tell me what I bought. And I said, well, you bought sod all, you know. So, you know, I mean, that's the thing. But I think what they're actually doing, when you think about it, years ago, the world was a much bigger place. So you could easily send your army in almost any country.
Yes.
Fight those nasty foreigners, because those nasty foreigners were people that you never met. So
absolutely.
You could demonize almost. I mean, look at Germany. The idea that we could go to war with Germany today would be unthinkable, but it happened 80 plus years ago. And when you think about it, because the world, which is a good thing, is now a much smaller place. I mean, for example, we got people listening in from all around the world now. Now they can't actually have war so easily. So what they're doing is the old and other things, and putting stuff in our food and wanting us to eat grasshoppers and crap like that.
And ruling by fear, casting fear as well is another thing.
That's right, and constant fear. I mean, it's in your face all the time. I've noticed fear. You know, but when it was the times what we, you know, a couple of years ago, where you had to wear the old masks and that, I asked people some artistic answers they gave, because I never wore a mask. I found it quite liberating, and some of the answers, I thought of a good answer to today, which I didn't say, and that is, excuse me, sir, have you got a mask? No, I'm not into macho sadism, thank you. Something like that.
The surgical gimp.
I used to say, I'm sorry, I don't sell them. You might be able to try eBay, and they sort of go. But I think the big problem is that people do follow like sheep. Unfortunately, they don't. I mean, I bet you were the only people, like myself, who's walking around the supermarket without a mask. It's a sort of
pretty much. I mean, I was at the stand in the park yesterday, and I actually was talking to a couple of my sort of brethren and sisterin from that, and as soon as I said, you know, there were some people that will always wear masks. There were a couple, and this is on a beautiful early summer's day, well, late spring, early summer's day, in the middle of a beautiful park. There were a couple. One, the chap didn't have a mask on, and the girl had a complete black mask on. I mean, it's literally, all you could see was her eyes and her baseball cap, and that was pretty much it. And there are some people, it's their security blanket. They'll never let it go. They will never let it go, even if they're told it's against the law to wear a mask. They'll probably seek a dispensation so that they can wear a mask.
Yes. And also, have you noticed nose over the top? So it's just over their mouth, but their nose.
That's it,
I can't get that one. They're
it's incredible.
You know, I don't understand that one either.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And when you consider that on the boxes, when you buy these masks, particularly the blue things, the surgical masks, when you buy them, it actually states, it has a disclaimer that it's not actually for surgical use. Now, I had a very recent bit of surgery. It wasn't anything serious, but my anaesthetist didn't wear a mask, and neither did the orthopedic surgeon that operated on me. Neither of them wore a mask. Amazing.
Was that Dr. the old man in a chair? What was his name? Dr. Coleman.
Dr. Zhivago. No, Dr. Vernon Coleman.
Yes. That's it. He said that in 1980 they did a survey and they had 50-50. Half the surgeons didn't wear a mask.
Yes.
And half the surgeons did, and they found it made a heap of the difference.
Precisely.
Apparently, they wear a mask to stop bits or something of themselves because you're always shedding bits.
Yeah.
It's the surge, but it didn't make any difference. I mean, let's face it. They reckon if we wear a mask, you can get bacterial pneumonia.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Hypoxia as well is another one.
Yep.
Yeah, and
the only time I wear a mask is if I spray, and even then it's awful. It's stifling. But I don't want to breathe in cellulose.
I mean, my rationale is: would you stick your nose? Would you turn your car on and stick your nose down by your exhaust pipe and start breathing that in? Because that's tantamount to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, the stuff we breathe out is not meant to come back. It's not a boomerang. It's meant to go out. So there's a reason for that. And the body is designed in that way. It's designed to expel things, which is why when we get ill, we get spots, we get this, we get that. Our eyes go red or we have sores on our lips. It's actually our body pushing the infection out, getting it out of our body, which is why the skin is the largest organ in the body. And the eyes are the best barometer. The eyes and the tongue are the best barometer for somebody's condition, without very thorough examination, of course. But you can get iridologists that can tell people if they've suffered from liver complaints or if they're diabetic or whatever else. And that's just through looking at somebody's eyes.
Yeah.
Let alone anything else.
From your fingernails as well, apparently.
Absolutely, yeah. You're quite right. You're quite right.
Basically.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Miles Fleetwood, who's the resident Fockham Hall, what's the official name for a doctor? Sorry?
Yes.
Nutritionalist.
Yes. Nutritionalist, but he's like, Chris Whiffy was the medical advisor to Fockham Hall, you see. And when he go along and he said, put your tongue out, he goes, yeah, you got this, you got that. And he can tell from your tongue a lot of things.
Absolutely, yeah.
And because, doctors years ago used to do that. When you're a little kid, you're going, take your tongue out. Look at your eye. They used to pull the eye like that. Okay. Right. I think he's a bit Tom and Dick, actually.
That's before doctors became drug pushers.
Yeah.
Doctors are merely drug pushers now. They really are.
I've said this before. You've probably heard me say this before anyway, but I remember my family doctor. He used to go in and he used to turn to face you and ask you what was wrong, and then he'd tell you what he thought it was. Now, you don't even get eye contact because they're busy going like this while you're sat at the side of them describing your symptoms.
That is if you get an appointment.
That's it, yeah.
Yes, if you get an appointment. It's amazing.
I'm clinically vulnerable, but I can't get an appointment.
My God, it's incredible. You'd think they were the ones that were clinically vulnerable because they don't want us to see them. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
This is why I think humans are best doing things on their own, because things tend to work when you do things.
Quite right.
I mean, I worked with a chap who was Argentinian, and he was in Argentina when they went bankrupt. Yeah. And I know it was different in different areas, and people are probably going to disagree with me here, but where he was, I'm not saying because it's a huge country, Argentina.
Yeah.
He said that, first of all, people, I think it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they used to bang on the walls of the bank with their kettles and frying pans and whatever, making noise. But the other things started to work. Like someone got a chain cutter, owned up the council yard, got the steamroller out and started fixing the holes in the road.
Perfect.
Out with the old shovels and had a go. And then people paid using barter and whatever for tutors. And there's a lot of police officers that are unemployed. So they thought, well, we want to have a bit of protection. So we paid for a police officer. And the government was thinking, oh, shit, they're beginning to realise that we're not needed. And then the International Monetary Fund came in and bailed them out and all that.
It happened in Belgium as well.
It's not bad, this.
It happened for a time in Belgium where they had no government for a period of time, and nobody could see any difference.
No,
because the civil servants at the end of the day are the people that actually run the country. They actually put the key in the ignition. They put the fuel. If it was a car, they'd put the fuel in it and they make sure it had enough oil. The tires were okay. Yeah. The windscreen wash was in the actual windscreen wash bottle reservoir, and when you turn the key, you drive it. Now, that's a crude analogy, but that's basically what civil servants do. And as long as we keep civil servants apolitical, which means they literally work for the country, and you could call this socialistic if you like, or a Republican, but they're apolitical anyway. They don't care whether it's Piers Corbyn or Jeremy Corbyn or whoever, or Keir Starmer, or the slumdog millionaire Rishi Sunak. They don't really care if it's one of those. It doesn't matter what political colour is actually what lanyard is flying, if you like, from number 10. They don't care. I mean, because they have a job to do. Now, in the way our world will look is, I think maybe we have a parallel system that we bring up in sitting next to the system that we've got already, and just take the good bits out, because we couldn't possibly just dismantle this now. We couldn't possibly do that, because they would actually start screaming anarchy, and then we'd have martial law, because they're already legislating and maneuvering martial law into place. There's already a component for that. In the Cobra Committee, let's say, for instance, they said, well, there's a emergency session of the Cobra Committee. We're facing dire circumstances. There are people rioting in the streets, and then they'll start to rerun an episode of Drop the Dead Donkey, if you remember that, where the cameras are shaking and things like that. And it's easier to do that now because we've got handheld communications, handheld cameras on mobile phones. It's easy to send a spoof report through. So there's no reason for them not to be able to do that. So we'd have to actually box really, really clever and actually use their system for purposes of brevity. Them, that lot are them, are the cabal or whatever you want to call them, and us and we, me, you and I are the people on our side of the ball. Now, that's for reasons of brevity, but we use their system in order to actually to start bringing ours into place, and it will be. We might have to take a hit. I mean, economically and lifestyle-wise, and standards of living, we might have to take a hit. But in the long term, it's what we'll need to do, because the alternative is just unacceptable. Because if we don't win, if you want to call it that, if you call it victory, if we don't win, we're going to be not even a footnote in history, because they'll erase that too. Yeah. Because they've already started erasing things in history.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Apparently the word gullible is
wipe it out.
Precisely. Apparently the word gullible has been removed.
I'll tell you what annoys me though.
Has
is
it?
when they talk about our ancestors.
Yeah. I thought I'd get you with that one.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, it is. It has been removed from the dictionary, apparently. That's New dictionaries don't have gullible in it.
Sorry, what was that?
They've removed the word gullible from the dictionary. No, it's not a joke, by the way. It's apparently new dictionaries that are being printed have the words removed, and words have been changed. Really? It's like the memory hole in 1984. I mean, that was Winston's job, to alter newsprint and to reset it. So that's what they're going to do, and so we won't even be the human race as such. Us, whatever, purebloods, whatever you want to call us, we won't even be a footnote in history, because we'll have been erased.
Yeah.
So we're going to either have to march over their dead bodies, or they march over ours, to quote a crude analogy. I think we've got no choice. I mean, just to repeat what I've just said earlier on, the alternative is just unthinkable and unacceptable. We cannot do that.
Well, they've already erased history, because what annoys me, I hate these cities. They've always got a bow tie, smug gits, BBC, because I've known it for years. And Professor Plonker, who's and it's always the same. They make our ancestors look like primitive savages. Well, I don't think it could have been that bad, because we wouldn't be here if that was the case. Let's face it, if they like going around marauding, killing each other. I mean, the people, when I was at school, all you heard about with history was the kings and queens that did nasty things to each other, who were psychopaths. Oh, well, he beheaded him, and he did this, he did that, and he did that. And you think, what an evil bunch of gits they were. And you get the impression that everybody in the world was like that. Well, no, they weren't, because there are you know, there must have been a lot of love and kindness around, because we wouldn't be here. We'd have been wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you're quite right. Yeah.
I mean, all right, they may have been illiterate, but you see, the big problem is that the birth count is actually reducing. Seriously, it is reducing, and we are facing extinction. Because I'll give an example. I was looking up statistics of Bangladesh. Now, in 1970, the average woman in Bangladesh had something like 5-point-something children, average, and it was a massive population. But what's happened is they brought electricity to Bangladesh, and there's, because of electricity, something about electricity that reduces the population, because what happens is you get a middle class, and when there's a middle class, they have less children. And now the average woman in Bangladesh has around 1.2 children, and it's not enough to keep the population going. So they went from massive population. What reason why is because there's a middle class, and it's enlarging middle class because they're bringing electricity, and it's something about electricity that brings a middle class along. And of course, the middle class, and this is happening in Africa. This idea that Africa has got a population explosion and India is bullshit. It's reducing, and they've got their figures wrong. And again, they're not having many children because of electricity is making a middle class. That's it. And of course, with middle class, got electricity, you got computers, you got, you know, you look at this, you're thinking, no, Deb. Do you agree? You're sitting there thinking, nah.
It doesn't make sense to me, Chris.
Really?
It's just mad.
What?
But the entire concept of what he's just spoken about, you mean? Yeah.
Really? What do you think then?
I'm not really sure.
Do you think you're overpopulated? Because apparently, after World War One, they knew there was a population crisis because we were not having as many children.
Yeah.
But again, what's happening is like in Bangladesh, they're not having as many children. And in China, that one child policy, they've stopped it because they realized that their population and this idea that we're overpopulated, it's reaching a peak and then it's dropping because more and more places be getting electricity. And of course, when you get electricity,
that's the bit that I don't understand.
Right.
Well, when you get electricity, suppose you're living in a mud hut, miles from anywhere, and you've got no electricity.
Nothing to do.
More children. You've got candle power, and the only thing you've got to do is produce more children. But once you get electricity, you think, oh, I'd like a fridge. If I have another child, I won't be able to afford a fridge. I'd like a car. Well, if I get another child, I won't be able to afford a car. And of course, you look at middle class areas, they have less children. They don't have so many big families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They spend their money on other things as well.
Yeah.
So instead of spending, let's say, 10% of their income, let's say, on their children's education, they'll end up spending 25% on their income on children's education, and hence having less kids. They buy bigger cars, they buy more cars, buy a bigger house or more houses. And that's obviously, being middle class, that's generally speaking what happens, you know. But, no, I get what you mean, Chris. I get what you mean. Yeah. And but about I just read something in the comments about being underpopulated, and if something's underpopulated, it could go under if there aren't enough people to drive an economy there.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's a YouTube. There's a channel called Itchy Boots, where there's a single girl from the Netherlands who goes around the world on a motorbike, and she's in the Gambia, I think, at the moment.
Yes.
And the people you think are piss poor, oh yeah, look at all the cars. They're modern cars. I mean, once upon a time you see dirty old wrecks driving around. No, these things are Nissans, Mercedes, and then you see people prancing around with smartphones.
Yeah.
And there's people doing video referencing. She goes to this tourist area, and there's the locals walking around with selfie sticks, and there's people doing videos and that. So what's happening? Electricity, and there's power cables here and everywhere, is making those people. Whereas if you would have went there 40, 50 years ago, there'd have been incredible poverty. That they've been, because they've got electricity now. That's brought them the goodies.
Right. Okay.
You think about it. And India, goodies. But, anyway, I hope you got that now.
I really don't know what I was thinking there.
Never mind. But I could be wrong. But hang on, if I'm wrong, please tell me in chat. Say that silly sod from Ock'em don't know his arse from his elbow.
No, I think they all agree with you there, Chris.
Boy, got to shut me up, didn't you?
I'm
saying nothing.
Right. But I wanted to. There's one or two things that I wanted to cover.
Yes.
Let me have a little look at my list. Okay. It's of the two. It ties in with the sort of grey aliens that we keep seeing around the place. There's a two-level almost reaction to things. For instance, I mean, I sent you something earlier on, Chris, that little meme about Prince Charles.
Yes.
You've finally been granted the job. They finally said yes for the job interview, and they had a picture. They had a picture of Charles when he was younger, and now that he's an old man. And they said, well, you finally got the job after an extended job interview, and people were chortling away at that on sort of the more straight LinkedIn sort of sites and whatever else. But the reality of it is we see something very, very different. It's like they live. It's like putting the glasses on and seeing something very, very different. Or literally like landing in a place where you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
And you have to communicate with people's body language. And their mannerisms are different.
Yeah. And
you're having to actually find out exactly what the mannerisms mean.
Yeah, interpret everything.
It comes across in the book I recommended to you about the Debt book, about the David Graeber book. He was talking about social mores, and there are certain tribes that they actually expected you to actually give them a gift.
Yeah,
they actually expected you to give them a gift as opposed to and for no reason whatsoever. You had to give them a gift. And they wouldn't see reciprocation as an obligation either.
Yeah.
So you would do something for them. Let's say save them from drowning. Then you had to go to their hut with a bushel of fruit. And to us, it's completely out of whack, but that was their culture.
Yeah.
Amazing. Incredible.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be employing that little tactic now. Please bring me gifts.
Well, look at Arabs. I mean, part of their culture, the Bedouins and that, was to actually welcome a guest as an honoured guest and make sure they're okay, because the harsh conditions they lived in the desert, they had to do that to look after each other. So you get this idea that the Bedouins were all sort of knifing each other and stealing stuff, but
creeping around behind the tents in the night.
That's right. But again, it's Hollywood. And, the actual people apparently are very pleasant, very nice, Then they slit your throat afterwards,
Yeah, when they've got one out, yeah.
Shall we have a quick shifty in chat?
Yeah, just look at that.
Do you want to have a quick shifty, Deb?
Yeah, just hang on. I'm just going to take that. I had the book title running underneath. I shall put the other ones on when you mention them, Robert.
Okay.
Right. Let me get back to my chat. What have we got? Okay. Where are we?
You want
Doris saying, I saw that movie Trumbo. One of my Peace Council buddies was also blacklisted at that time.
Dory's really, really on the pulse. Dory is.
Yeah.
Very on the pulse. She's got a very, very interesting lineage as well, by the way.
Oh, I
very
like that
interesting.
Sort of
Yeah.
She's also saying, I could never bear John Wayne, so obnoxious and not in the least attractive. I agree with that completely. He makes me skin crawl. And unfortunately, he's on in this house quite a lot, which is when I go for a little nap and get out of the way. Right.
Apparently, he's bullied by his wife, wasn't he?
Was he?
So they say.
Henpecked superstar.
Marion, as his real name was, wasn't it? Marion Morrison.
Right, Marion Morrison, that's it, yeah, precisely, yeah.
But again, he didn't act.
No, he didn't.
He never acted, did he? He just sort of,
And then Sean Connery learned all he knew of him as well, because he didn't.
And ended up being a better actor.
No, he didn't act.
For Red October, when he was supposed to be a Russian, he had a Scottish accent.
Yes, and the Untouchables as well.
Yeah,
but he could get away with it because it was turn of the century Chicago, wasn't it? So there were a lot of people with Irish accents and Scottish accents that had come out of the army, that had gone straight to the States and become cops and whatever else. So that was plausible, I suppose. That was plausible. But in the name of the rose, as well.
Yes.
Where you've got a Trappist monk with a broad Glaswegian accent. At 8, can you get my target out of there, please? Precisely. Very funny.
What about Michael Caine inside the House Rules, where I think he had irritable bowel syndrome?
Yeah.
It was so bad it must have made Americans cringe because of course he can't do an American accent. I'm sorry. And the other one was Bob Hoskins. He couldn't do it. He acted in the film. Well, he had an irritable bowel syndrome as well. He just couldn't do the American accent. It was
the only film I liked him in was The Long Good Friday. That is one of my favourite films. I can watch that film without the sound on. I have got it. I've seen it a million times.
It is a great film.
It is.
It is a great film.
And the end part, nobody has ever done anything like that, ever.
Oh.
That very end sequence when he's in the back of the car is just mind-blowing. Anyway, yes.
It's London. That is the gritty sort of side of London, and as it used to be.
Yeah.
And he acted perfectly.
He was he fit that role. Yeah. Anyway. Dory again, speaking of John Wayne, the military connection to Hollywood is now widely known. Hi, Brummy. Thanks for that, but it's a reality I have to face. I don't know. That was quite a while back, so I don't know what that was in reference to.
Something else. Yeah, something else. But
Louise is saying Norfolk lost 126 million in the Icelandic bank bullshit. Most of our taxes pay government debt, then they borrow more, which is true.
Absolutely. And the president of Iceland asked for forgiveness from the Icelandic people for having completely lost almost all, because they were the last man standing in terms of an independent bank. They were not connected as such to a central banking system, but now they have their own central bank now, which is the death knell for any economy, really, as far as equality is concerned and as far as parity is concerned. Because you'll always have the haves taking from the have-nots, and it will just continue and keep getting worse. And this is, I don't quite know whether it was Cromwell or maybe King George or maybe even the time between that, but this country actually became indebted to the bankers, to the people that created money out of nothing and created money out of debt. And then we were finished then. And by all accounts, if all things being equal, the city of London should just be wiped out. But it's literally just a square mile. But it's probably the most protected square mile on the planet, bar none, even more so than Washington. Yeah. Even more so than that. And it was probably one of the first places that I saw so much surveillance there. And now my local borough are actually they're actually starting to float the spectre of crime and saying we need more police, we need more surveillance. There's a camera almost everywhere. I mean, Well, I'm thinking of having an experiment, Chris and Deb, where you drop a wallet and say, well, I dropped it at such and such a place at such and such a time. Could you help me find it? They go, well, no, we can't help you find it. Well, it was on your cameras. I dropped it right under about 12 cameras. You must be able to find it, you know. But and there's a surveillance in the supermarkets as well. Has anybody noticed that when you go to the tills, and whether it's usually the express tills, you see your face there. Yeah. And
it's not very flattering, really.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
But what's it there? Why do you need to look at yourself?
Well, it is facial scanning. That's face mapping that they're doing now.
No, I always go to check out where I have to physically deal with somebody. Yeah,
me too. I'm paying cash.
Yes.
Now, the reason.
Do you see
what, Chris?
Sorry, Chris, go on.
Excuse me, cutting in. Do you see what those students? Some students in America did something to upset the facial recognition cameras.
Right.
Now, there was something in the First World War, dazzle, and they used to paint battleships. Strange patterns like white with black stripes, all this weird abstract on it. And when you saw a ship on the horizon, it upset your sort of nerves. And it was it was very clever.
Yeah.
Called dazzle. Now, what these American students did, they painted their faces white with sort of like black stripes going at all different directions. Looks sort of abstract. So your nose, you'd have a sort of a black sort of V coming out there, and your mouth would be like a V there, and all these weird shapes.
Pixelating yourself.
And, that's right, and it's the facial recognition cameras just couldn't handle it. So
that's
I
fantastic.
thought, why not have a with sort of, you know what the Australians have, like the strings?
Yeah.
With kind of dazzle in front of that. So as you walk in, you can see through it, but the camera just sees this sort of weird sort of shapes.
And I
get something out like that. You just put a hat on with this sort of like weird. It's not against the norm.
That's a fantastic
idea.
It's all these little things, though, isn't it, that people are doing to kind of chip away at stuff. That's what I like to it.
This is it comes back to what I was speaking about right at the. Sorry, Chris, carry on.
Well, just very, very quickly. You know those screens you can put in front of your laptop screen, so that people, if you're on a train and you're using a laptop,
privacy screens
from the left, that's right, and the top can't see. Well, could you put one of those
around your face?
That'd be a great idea.
So, I wouldn't be able to see you. Could only see your head on. Just a thought.
Or you could extrapolate the mask theory. So instead of wearing a mask, a surgical mask, you wear a complete facial mask.
Yeah.
And you all go in there. You select one every day. You select a new political figure. You'd have Piers Corbyn. You'd have Keir Starmer. You'd have Rishi Sunak, and you all walk in there with Rishi Sunak masks on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, why are you doing this?" And, well, you asked us to wear masks. Oh, I think Dory wants to know where the students are, these guys in the States.
You say Australia?
I saw it on Facebook.
Australia.
No, I thought Australia. I thought it was America.
No,
I saw it on
Facebook.
Oh, right. I'll try and find out and send Dory a quick mail, actually, and try and find out that. Because I know that she's one of the leaders of resistance in the New England area. You know.
That's what we need.
Yes.
And then Fiona's saying that's how zebras confuse their predators with their stripes when they run en masse.
Actually, that's a very, very... And it also ties in, Chris.
Yeah.
It also ties into a military... There's a military component there. This is partly why the British Army wore red coats.
Yeah.
They wore red coats in order... Because it's harder to count and to estimate numbers from a distance when everybody's wearing red, because it ends up being a splurge.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I worked with a few chaps that were in the forces in the city, a couple of Royal Marines and whatever else, a couple of Green Jackets and people like that. And it really is interesting. The history of the military is amazing when it comes to that. I mean, it's obviously covered in blood and it's minted in blood, but it's very, very interesting nevertheless. But the Royal Marines call themselves bootnecks, by the way.
Yes, they do, yeah.
And you know the reason, don't you, Deb?
I've forgotten it now, but I did do, yes.
Right.
It's been that long since I've Yeah.
Because they used to actually be ship's marines, they were ship-bound infantry. What used to happen was that the sailors used to try and rob them when they were sleeping, and they would attempt to cut their throats and steal their purses. So what they would do is they would wear a leather choker around their neck so that their necks couldn't be cut.
Yeah.
Their throats couldn't be cut. Hence bootneck.
Bootleg, yeah.
Bootneck, yeah. It's fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. But Deb, you said something earlier on about that's the way we've got to do it. When we talked about those students in America or Australia, wherever it might be, buggering up the facial recognition. If it's tiny little victories that chip away in different spheres, different parts of the world, that wins the day. I don't think big movements will just be co-opted and they'll just be led down some little Freudian dark alley if we're not careful.
Yeah.
It goes back to that quote that's attributed to Lenin. The best way to combat an opposition is for us to lead it.
Exactly.
So, and the yellow vest people, to a certain extent, even though they're doing great work in principle, they are being led. The yellow placard people, the people that do I call them processions now, on a monthly basis. I've got nothing against them, and there's a great energy that comes about when you go to one of those marches. It's a fantastic energy. But the point is, there's no coincidence that they always start at the same place. They go via the same route, nowhere near the city of London, I might add, Chris, and then end up in some godforsaken outpost in South London. And you think, well, why? Why can't we do it in reverse, for instance, and end up in Trafalgar Square or Hyde Park? Why do we have to start at Hyde Park? Why can't we start at Trafalgar Square and then go up toward Camden? Why can't we do that instead? And it didn't pass my smell test. And when you see the fifth columnist, the little plants, the Secret Service or security service guys at the front of every so-called protest, rattling the barriers and pushing police and getting in their faces and never seeming to get arrested. Stig! Let's give Stig a virtual hug, everybody. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
He's not in the chat. He's not in the chat tonight to hand your hugs out.
Sorry about that, Stig. I'll make it up to you. I'll arrange a back rub that you'll never forget, my friend.
Hello, Sarah.
But yeah, precisely. Yeah, but going back to that, I mean, you see the same people and I won't mention any names, but you see the same people at every march/procession. You see the same ones, and they're seen as protagonists and whatever else and leaders, but they're Judas goats, if anything else. They may be well intentioned, they may not know that, they may be completely co-opted, there may be special branch, we never know, but they're certainly not there for the good of us in the long term.
No,
they're not there for the good of us.
They tell people what they want to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah And it's the same as what's his name? It's the same as the branded one, first name Russell, that one.
Yes.
Yeah. All of a sudden he's cropped up with his beads and his long hair and his shirt down to his navel and with his Vishnu come lately sort of thing, you know. And you think,
looks like
really?
Jesus. Yeah.
Yes, but the thing about it is, I'm hoping he has the same end, but without the resurrection, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean I don't really wish anything bad on anybody.
Turns up.
Yes, and has anybody noticed that these people are starting to surface? These so-called dissidents are starting to surface more and more. The last 18 months or so, you get Mr. I'm so sincere Caledonian with his windswept and interesting scarf and his beard, his long hair. That guy. He looks like an extra from Braveheart with real clothes on. You know the type. Now there's him, and then there's people like that. They all of a sudden have started coming out of the woodwork. And what they then do is they then start picking off I wouldn't call them low-hanging fruit, but I mean people that are, the mass formation thing where you've got the 30, 40, 30. They're the 40% that are kind of leaning toward our side of the ball, but really, really don't. They're really undecided, and they can be swayed either way. Now they're picking off those people and dragging them to the other side. So that mass formation thing, our argument becomes, it isn't our argument that becomes, it's not our argument that becomes depleted through that. It's literally our numbers that become depleted.
Yeah.
And we could use numbers. We don't absolutely have to have them. Most revolutions are started with between 3 and maybe 7, maybe 40 to 14% of a population that actually say no more and start. Our friend Dory would be able to actually say more about that because she's polymath when it comes to things like that. But in terms of that sort of thing, those little victories, that's what we've got to aim for. And it doesn't matter whether it's people pursuing the path of common law or people pursuing avoiding council tax or PCNs or speeding fines, whatever little we can do. But the more of us do that, peck away. I suppose it's like being attacked by a swarm of bees. You might get a couple of them, but you'll get stung, won't you?
Yeah.
So we're the bees and the wasps. Wasps, precisely, hornets. Yeah. And we do that, and eventually, if you sting something enough, it dies.
Yeah. We'll keep chipping away.
That's spot on. But in a little way, and I like this small groups because people, also I find that humour. Now, psychos don't like humour. They don't like it being laughed at.
They don't understand it. They don't understand it. It doesn't compute for them.
He stood there and people go, and he banged comedians. So what comedians did? They mimed. And it's even more. And he knew comedians were going for him. And these dictators don't like humour at all because humour is often a lot of truth that comes out. And I think that you're saying about these people. Now I don't go around mouthing saying, "Oh, this person's a shill, that person's." I don't do that. I let people find out for themselves. But there's lots that are so open. Like I won't mention his name, but someone, shall we say, in Bedfordshire. I think.
Yes, precisely. Yes, the man of many names. The man of many names. Yeah.
Who likes wearing a flag of a country we're not allowed to criticise.
And is probably also not welcome in many Bangladeshi restaurants either.
No, he doesn't go for his curry. No, he's not very welcome. Yes, and it is part of the agenda to stir up problems because yes, we do know that there's grooming gangs and things like that, but that's not all of them. That's a minority. So what you do, you go for the minority. You don't go for the majority. And
absolutely,
and it's stirring up trouble. And I think I shouldn't say too much, but a lot of people are not shall we say, their heart isn't in this country, and it's not for us.
Yeah.
No, you're quite right. But there's another component to that, Chris. There's the internationalists. Well, they started out as internationalists. People like Woodrow Wilson that were trying to press in the Paris conference the League of Nations. It didn't last because there were too many greedy people wanting to slice the map up around the place. But now we've got the UN, and we've got other NGOs that are non-governmental bodies that are actually feeding into that world group. Now, it manifests itself in the City of London Corporation, that run a large part of it. I don't think it's just one lot. Otherwise, we'd have been toast a long time ago. I think there were maybe 3 factions, that are vying for this, and they're trying their best ways. They colluded to start with in order to push everybody else out, but now there's a trifecta, maybe slightly more. I might be wrong, but I have a feeling that they are very, very large bodies that are actually moving things around. But we've got to wait for them to have a punch up, a bit of a scrap, and then we pick up the pieces. We pick up the dregs and the body parts, if you like, from their conflict, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And this is partly why we have. We've got One United messages now, and it's funny you should use the phrase grooming. They've been grooming us for generations.
Yeah.
They've been sort of coating us in honey and telling us we're wonderful and sort of, giving us a massage and a foot rub and a back rub. And, in terms of things like easy credit, consumer goods that make things easier, phones, whatever you might have, again, it ties in more with what Chris said earlier on about the middle classes having less children because they take on more accoutrement, if you like, more bits and pieces, more little bits of more items of luxury, and it's easy, which explains what happened in Australia, Ireland to a certain extent, New Zealand, to a certain extent the United States, where they've got generally quite a high standard of living. Gasoline is something like 12 pence, it's 12 pence and a candy for a gallon or whatever they pay for it. It's way less than ours. But that's been subsidized for so long in order to drag them in. It's literally like the cheese in the mousetrap. Yeah. And they waited for the mouse to get really hungry and then slam. And then the mouse is in the trap now. And that's, crude metaphors, I know, but crude analogies rather, I know, but this is what they've been doing to us for, I think, centuries now.
Oh, they have. But when you look at apparently Canada is far richer than America. The standard of living was the highest in the world. They really, they were like the Swiss. I know my cousin in the 50s, he's passed away now. And when he came back to England, he used to work for the Airways. He was heating and ventilating engineer. And he used to get cheap tickets. So his mother would fly across to Canada and he'd fly over here. And that was in the 60s and 70s. And when he came over, his standard of living was streets ahead of ours. He lived in a lovely detached house and he was just sort of lower middle class. He had a detached house, basement, couple of cars were junk to them, and that was in Canada. And he said he did really well. But now Trudeau's got in, whose daddy, shall we say, we won't go into that, but no, I think his daddy came from Cuba somehow, but we won't go into that, will we? His mummy apparently was a martini girl, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Absolutely, the original good time had by all. Yes, precisely.
You ever see that little mini skirt? Going off her wares. I think that was the term.
Yes, precisely. Yes.
Yes, I think she liked the Nicholas Parsons show, but misunderstood it and thought it was to do with
So in terms of, I think then we get down to discussing solutions then, don't we, afterwards, I suppose?
The positive side, this is what is missing with a lot. You hear these speeches, nobody tells you how we're going to get over it. Nothing's going forward. It's always, we're going to win. Yeah, how are we going to do it? You look at things like UK column and things like that. Very good, but nothing tells you how we're going to be positive. No. Because we win, wars are won in the hearts and minds of people. And we're at war. And I think when we look at it, they've divided us all the time. And the real enemy is the psychopaths. Not all psychopaths, but the psychopaths of all religions, nations, or whatever. This little clique of psychos that want rid of us. That's who it is, but it's identifying them. Because I still wonder whether those on the world stage are the puppets still. And it's the ones.
Oh, absolutely. They are order takers, pure and simple.
Yeah.
They are orders. But part of us looking for big brother or big mother is part of us having been infantilized over generations. We've been spoon fed. And I think it comes back to what I said earlier on about having to take a hit, having to take responsibility, having to stand up in the pouring down rain with no brolly. Yeah. And this is what we've chosen to do. But we're doing this now. We're taking a hit now, so we can sit in the sunshine later. And I think most people want to follow. Most people need to follow. This is partly, Chris, it ties into your father, wherever you're alive today, probably corroborate this. This is why the British Army was so good, because we were really good order followers, and no better army than the Germans. Because the Germans, the good German, if you like, they followed everything. Not everybody, but I'm talking about the Wehrmacht now. The people that they were able to mold and planish, if you like, and anneal into a fighting force. That some of them bought into Nazism and master race, and some of them just went along. But it's a little bit like, there's a great documentary I watched called The Truth About Killing. And it's also a book as well, I believe. The guy that was presenting it was a psychologist who actually fought in the US Army as well. And I think he did a lot of secret squirrel stuff, hiding in bushes and shooting bow and arrows at the Viet Cong or whatever else. But he was one of those guys. And he came up with the equation that in a platoon of, let's say, 25 people, only 1 or 2 are actual homicidal maniacs. It's not the homicidal maniacs that you've got to worry about. It's the people who follow them. Yeah. So we've got to be careful about following. Yes. So there's no. I don't think there's any problem or any issue with you being, if you're like an army of one, and if somebody else wants to join you and be a confederate or co-conspirator, if you want to call it that, then that's fine. As long as you've got a common enemy, a common goal, and you don't even need a common methodology. I think you need to just be going in the same direction. And once you do that, I think you're fine. But I don't think, if you're looking for leaders, you're looking for something that is probably not the healthiest solution. I really don't think so.
Spot on. Do you know why the French? Do you know the First World War? Why it ended? People don't know the real reason why it ended. We're told a waffly story. The real reason the First World War ended is because the French army mutinied en masse, and the German Navy left their ships and marched on Berlin. That's the real reason. And what did the British Army do? Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Go over and yes, sir. But actually, there was a small mutiny. There was a play about a film about it. Was it Monaco Mutineer?
Yes. With Paul McGann.
So it did sort of happen, but the thing is, this country is always, yes sir, no sir. And my mum and dad was saying that when they captured German POWs, our army had khaki.
Yes,
they could just sort of see him on. He said you couldn't see the prisoners with the background. Their camouflage was superior to ours because that field grey they had just matched perfectly with the background. He said you could just couldn't see it, but he said our lot you could stuck out like a sore thumb. It's really strange, But the thing is, I think that Spike Milligan was correct. He said Germany didn't really lose the war; they just got bored with the idea.
Good old Spike.
I thought I'd do something else, But we're going to have an ad, Deb, for your show.
Yes,
we've almost forgotten it. Oh dear, we can't go through it. Right.
That's my concentrating face.
She's concentrating. She's concentrating there,
I've found it.
Okay, right.
You're ready. Hang on.
Here we go. You got the wrong one.
That one. Right, yeah.
Okay.
Do this one.
Brilliant. And that reminds me, when I go and see Miles, he's going to give you a couple of ghost stories, wasn't he? That's happened to him.
I'll give him a reminder. Out of him.
Do you think I should go there with an animal prod and just prod him? Can you remember? Yes, okay. I'll get an animal prod and do that, you know. But his ears are half burning now.
Just give him me an email address, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I ran. Speaking of ghosts, I ran into a lady about 3 weeks ago at one of the. There's a gathering that that was prompted by the lockdown. We have a gathering in a pub in Baker Street every Friday, and that's where I met Corinne actually. That is a lot of really interesting, quite like-minded people. You do have a lot of flat earthers and a lot of people that believe that everybody else is a lizard but them and all that kind of thing. But, you know, you do have that. But for the most part, they're a pretty good bunch. And I met a lady that deals in dowsing.
Yes.
Now that's getting
dowsing rods.
Right now. Deb, is that just getting rid of evil, not evil spirits, unwelcome spirits, spirits that attract? I don't know what it is, but I need to be filled in.
You tend to use them for the basic mine of brass and copper. The copper's the handles, and then the points are the brass.
Okay.
But you can find water sources with them.
Ah, okay.
Energy points. You can point one of them round your room to find out where your bed should be positioned.
Right, ley lines and things. Does he figure in with ley lines?
Kind of energy lines, things like
energy
that.
Lines.
They were mainly used for finding water sources years ago because you can use anything that you can swivel, that you can loosely hold, and it'll swivel.
Right, okay.
So sticks but like I say, mine are copper and brass.
Mm.
But yeah, you can do anything.
And it works, does it? Yeah. It works. Yeah.
They're not for sort of banishing spirits or anything. They're more for locating things.
They're more for having with spirits. When you find a decent source of water, you put it with your whiskey, then, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, precisely.
Keeps the ice near away.
Yes, precisely. Yeah, precisely. I get it. But it's funny because I was years ago. I listened to a really good guy called Paul Gregory Martin, who's George Martin's son, as in the producer of the
George
Beatles.
Martin, yeah.
Yes, and he's a very interesting, amazing backstory as well. He was talking about freeing spirits, and he would write people's astral charts. He started doing it from the age of 9.
Wow.
One of the earliest charts he ever wrote was sitting down in the cafe at Abbey Road with John Lennon, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. And he talked about dark female energy in his chart. And obviously, I think Yoko was just coming on the scene then. But he mentioned because he had a thing with his mother died or his aunt raised him or something like that.
Right.
And he had a very, very strong female karma in his background.
Yeah. Really
strong. In fact, when they moved to the Dakota building, he used to call Yoko mother.
Right.
He would call her mother.
Yeah.
And that was not just when they were together with Sean and whatever else. In front of musicians, he would call her mother. Yes, mother, I'll do that, mother.
Yeah.
Amazing. And he saw that as well. And I think it was James Delingpole that was interviewing him. He said, did you mention his end, his death? He said, no.
No.
He said, no. He said, and I think he reckons that people know. Yeah. People that are connected in that way.
Yeah.
To a spiritual connection, to a psychological connection, whatever sort of connection. Very creative people. I think they generally know what their course is and how long their path is going to be.
I'd agree with that.
But where do you think that comes from, though, Deb?
I think that's a deeply spiritual thing. I think that's an inner knowledge that, unless you tap into it or you're really strongly connected to it, I don't think you give it a second thought.
Right.
But I've known people, kind of spiritual people, that have sort of got lots of things in place over time, little things that you wouldn't kind of think about. My mum did it. Little things that you wouldn't think about for when they'd passed over and you'd got to deal with things.
Right.
Like she wrote a list of all the things in her house, which I found in a handbag in a little book, addressed to me and saying things that may be of value. And she'd listed everything. Now,
oh bless.
But little things like that I think my mum knew, because my mum was quite spiritual.
Yes. And also, like attracts like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you notice that we work almost telepathically. Because I wonder if they're, and it's quite amazing. It really is. I don't know if you've noticed it as well. But as a sort of telepathy, people give off a kind of energy. I mean, sometimes and it's surprising. It is. There is something you just. It's like anywhere you go into a shop, maybe, and the shop assistant, you'll either get on with them or you won't. You think some people go, "This is just terrible." And others, you think you have a bit of a laugh and a joke with.
It's like people that you meet that you've never met them before, but you feel an instant connection, like you've known them forever.
Yeah.
I think that's a deeply spiritual thing as well, which you probably have in another plane. But
I was just going to say that. Do you think you have known them together? Because one of the things I heard, actually, Fergus O'Connor Greenwood, the book that I recommended to you, the 180 Degrees.
Yes.
Which people, if you haven't read it, is a great book. It's a bloody big book, but it's a great book.
It's a very big book. You get your money's worth. I'll give you that.
It is. Yeah, you can actually use it to knock out the council tax collector when he comes in. give him a good club across the head with that. But I think maybe Deb's got something to put on the screen. But
it's running along the bottom now.
Yeah. So it's Sorry, carry on, Chris.
Oh, carry on. No, I chimed in. You carry on, please.
Yeah. So, do you think what he did say was that he was talking about spirituality, and what he did say is we aren't immortal, but we are eternal.
Yeah.
Which means we go round and round and round and round. He reckons that maybe some spirits stick as one person, then that person comes back, or they go into, it's a cycle of life, if you like.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think, I had one of my younger siblings pass away just before Christmas. And I like to think that his spirit, the minute it went into a child that was being born in that hospital.
Yeah.
I may not have the privilege of knowing that spirit.
No, but
I've already known that spirit. Yeah. And that spirit has already known my spirit. So somewhere along the line we'll link up. And it's a little bit like you're saying that there are people that you chime with, and there are people that it's literally like tuning a guitar, let's say, for instance. Yeah. When you hear the oscillations, you know that the two strings are in tune with each other. Then you go to the next two. And it's a little bit like that. And then again, Chris was saying frequencies and vibrations. It's very important. And I think one of the things that one of the gene altering things, or body altering, chemistry altering things that they've done with these little arm spears is to actually knock our body chemistry and frequency sets out of whack.
Yeah.
Or to at least blunt a couple of them. So we can't, they can't chime and they can't vibrate against one another.
No.
And I don't know how everybody else in the chat feels about that, but it's the older I get and the more I look into this, the more it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you meet people. Sorry, Chris. Sorry. When you meet people that are that bit off center, they're a little bit too aggressive, they're a little bit too moody, they're a little bit off. You know that they're not resonating properly for some reason.
Yeah.
They're that guitar that's out of tune, or that violin that's out of tune.
Yeah.
And it sounds discordant or whatever else. And that is, discord is probably the right way of describing them, because they are in discord. They're not in tune with themselves. And if you're not in tune with yourself, you can't be in tune with others. That's for sure.
I agree with that. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, with reincarnation, I mean, my dad thought that I was a reincarnation of. That's right. It's my computer making a funny dinging noise. It's got a funny dinging noise. It's suffering from John Hamerism tonight.
Oh, right, bloody hell!
Yeah, and my dad thought I was may have been the reincarnation of his brother, because his brother died 2 years before I was born.
Yeah.
And he had an elder brother who looked after him. And when he was at school, he was a couple of years older. I think he was 3 or 4 years older than my dad. And at school, if any bullies bullied my dad, his brother would come out, bang! He couldn't stand it. And he sort of was like a father figure in a funny sort of way, because his father was blind. And but you see, his dad was a very nice man, don't get me wrong, and he said the certain ways I'd look, he could see his brother, and some different mannerisms he could see his brother in me. So it's a funny thing. I do believe in reincarnation. I fully do, because
that's a bit worrying, Dory. There is a couple interviewed by Maria Z, found on the Sage of Key
Sage of Quay.
Quay, is it? Well, I pronounce that Key, but Quay. Yeah.
Sage of Quay, yeah.
Who found EMR signals coming off of jabbed people. Totally creepy.
Yeah, that ties in with
Dabba.
That conclusion is one of the easiest things to lampoon, and it's a little bit like David Icke with the lizard people. He didn't actually say that. If you go back and listen to the interview that he had with Terry Wogan, the first one, he didn't actually say that.
No,
he didn't say that at all. But then all of a sudden you've got they're like the bleating sheep in Animal Farm, in the novel Animal Farm. Yeah. And they're literally that's what the House of Commons are like. And I think Eric Blair knew wherever he spoke. And I think he knew that they would literally shout down anyone that comes away from their point of view, or opposes their point of view, which is why, and the bleating now takes the form of cancelling somebody.
Yeah.
For instance, you had that LGBT entity, or I don't know what it was, or boy, girl, whatever. But anyway, it was obviously some dude with long hair in a ponytail. And the scenario is, I think it happened in Southampton. I'll send you the clip, actually. It's easily sort of Googleable. I found it on YouTube anyway. And what it was is a lady was waiting for her coffee, and one of the other staff turned and asked her, "Are you being served?" "Yes, thank you. That lady over there is looking after me." Bang! It was just, the explosion was amazing. And then she started giving it the sort of that head movement and all this kind of stuff, like she was some black girl from the hood, and with a finger and all this kind of. And then what happened is she was saying, "How dare you call me transphobic and this and that? You don't know who I am. I made an innocent mistake, blah, blah." And the entity, should we call it that, wouldn't let it go.
No.
And what then happened, she pursued somebody outside that was filming and slapped the phone out of their hand.
Yeah.
Consequently, Starbucks fired this entity anyway. But it just goes to prove it's the sort of willingness and the need to be offended as well, which is another thing that I wanted to kind of touch upon.
Snowflakes.
People need to be offended. They really need to be offended. You can come up to somebody, Chris or Deb, and you should say, "You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. I don't think I've met anybody that's such a polymath or so interesting or gives me knowledge every time I speak to them." And they could say, "So you don't think I'm good at football then?"
Yeah.
"So you think I'm only a thinker, I'm just a bookworm?" And then they would literally, you could actually say, "Here's £1 million in cash, or $1 million in cash. Those notes look a bit grubby." It's a little bit like that.
How dare you hand me dirty notes?
Yeah, precisely. 1 million of them as well, precisely. It beggars belief. Well, it actually used to beggar belief, but it's actually now the norm now.
Yeah, it is.
People are actually just literally lighting the blue touch paper. It's almost as if you're lighting a firework every time you speak to people.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And also, they've got this attitude that you've got this pent-up anger, that you hate certain groups of people, and you're just holding it back. This because you hate certain groups of people, and you've blurted it out.
Yeah.
it's all right to say that you hate, I don't know, Germans. Oh yeah,
precisely, yeah.
In the war, you know, you got to hate the Germans. But you got to be careful with Jehovah's Witnesses, because you know.
Precisely, precisely. They're perpetually offended,
Yes.
As soon as you say one thing wrong, you're thrown, an ism's thrown at you. Oh, that's just
precisely,
I mean, you know, I asked a question. I said, you know, what is a racist, homophobic? I think the rest of them. What am I supposed to wear a cardboard wig or something? Or have an antenna on my head? I'm of this, I'm of that. It's pigeonholing you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you have to dig yourself out of a trench. Yeah. Oh, you're this. Well, no, I'm not. But now what I do is when people make those ridiculous comments, I say, yes, how did you guess? You know, carry on. Should we carry on with the conversation?
You need to get offended back and say, I can't believe you've labelled me. I'm literally raging.
Yeah. Or you could say that, look, to be honest with you, I know that you've accused me of being a racist, but it takes me all my time to be a moron, so I can't possibly fit that in. I'm really sorry. Yeah.
I usually say, I didn't know I looked so fit, and you think I like racing. Crumbs.
Precisely, yeah. It's phenomenal, though.
It is actually phenomenal. Stop intelligent conversation, because
that's what they want to do. They want to stop all conversation.
You see, the only group of people on this planet that I detest are the psychopaths that want to kill humans. And that's
precisely
who we all detest. So if you want to call me some name like a psychopathist hater or something, yes, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of disliking psychopaths. People like Tony Blair, people like Arnold Schwartz, and
precisely,
and Bill Gates and his shitty software, which
Bungalow Bill,
Bungalow Bill. It's these people who I again think they're the puppets. This is who I think we're not looking at who the enemy is, because this is the first war. I mean, years ago we knew who the enemy was. It was that lot coming towards us with weapons. That's who the enemy is. Pretty simple, you know. And they're going to kill us if we don't kill them. Now the enemy is, who are they? Is it them? It's them. No, is it them? And this is the problem. And people are brainwashed into different cultures and things like that to worship their leaders. This is what we got to get away from, because I mean, this South Coast has put something interesting here. South Coast Rich has said, I also think that councils and governments, I think are very good ideas. How else would local and national infrastructure be funded and organised without them? Example, roads, rail, street lighting, schools, etc. Yes, but it's the civil servants that do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You see, it's unelected civil servants. And really, you see, it's also handing responsibility for your own life over to a complete stranger. I mean, you look how bureaucratic governments, councils are. Yes, it's supposed to be all privatised and that, but then what does a council really do? I mean, Ronald Reagan once said something very true. He said, I can't remember it verbatim, but he said, if government took, I think, a couple of months off, would anybody notice any difference? The answer would be no, because the civil servants run the country. So let's have an accountable civil service. Let's not have some faceless bozo making rules about you that you don't know. And this is the problem, because it's an old boys club, the civil service.
It is very much. And it really is. They recruit from a handful of universities as well.
Yeah.
They recruit from places like Durham, Keele, St Andrews, some Oxford and Cambridge for the upper level ones. Yeah. It's by no means just those universities, but there's a handful of them that they recruit from.
Yeah.
Because they get people that are of a certain mindset.
Yes.
And I mean, it were ever thus, but I think it's getting worse now. And anybody in the chat, or anybody that knows anybody that has a child at university, especially if they've experienced a university education before, generations ago or decades ago, they will know the difference when their child comes home from on summer holidays or whatever it might be. They'll know the difference in the discourse as well.
Yes.
Things change. Things change, and what they've wanted to do for a long time is they've wanted to almost abolish conversation and discourse. Because if you have conversation, you can get consensus and you can get people conspiring through conversation, which is why they close the pubs, because that's where conspiracy. That's it. That's why they closed the pubs, because people put the world to rights in pubs.
Yeah. That's what we talked about yesterday, because we finished off this ramble, foraging walk in the pub. Now, I went in and I sort of said, "Do you, could I have a cup of coffee, please? Sorry, the coffee machine's up the spout. Can I have a cup of tea, please? Sorry, the tea machine's up the spout." So I was running out and I was asking for a drink. So I said, okay, I'll have my usual, which is blackcurrant and tonic water, which is not alcoholic. So I had my blackcurrant and tonic water. That was £2. A bloke bought a pint, and he said, "I have to see my bank manager about this." I think he just got a few pence change out of £5.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It's amazing, isn't it?
You can go to the supermarket and you can buy booze relatively cheap. So they don't want you going to pubs, and I feel sorry for pubs because they were eating places, and you don't have to drink. I'm sort of a non-drinker. I might have half a Guinness just to be friendly if I'm not driving. But when I'm driving, I don't touch it at all.
No.
And but I mean, blackcurrant and tonic water is mine. I enjoy that. But the thing is that pubs are basically hanging on by their fingernails. Most of them.
I go when we go out on the bike, we go through all these not little villages. I mean, villages that have enough shops and things, but the pub is always the one that's shut down and derelict looking.
Yeah,
and that was like in those sort of places. That was kind of the hub of the community, wasn't it? Everybody met in the pub, and a bit like on Emmerdale, where they all kind of get in there and exchange views and stuff. And that's it. They're putting making booze to drink at home so cheap. So that they can isolate you.
Well, there's people that are actually opening up sheds in their back gardens. They're turning them into pubs. So all the locals that come round,
Yorkshire Rose is just saying, stand firm in your point of view and your confidence throws them. I think that's going back.
Absolutely right. Yeah, she's absolutely good. One of the things they did with pubs as well is they start gradually chipping away at a pub's social, its power to bring social cohesion. They started putting jukeboxes in there.
Yeah.
Then they started putting TVs in there.
Yeah, sports.
Massive screen televisions with sort of, these bright glistening lights. And it's something to do with the flicker rate of televisions as well, and computers to a certain extent. Yeah. And it's part of the way they started putting a nail in the coffin of cash every decade, because who remembers the brown envelope at the end of every week?
Wage packet.
That's the one. Now, they cited a reason for getting rid of that, and you'll notice around about the same time you had a lot of heist robberies. Yes. You had a lot of things like robbery with Stanley Baker. Then you had the one with Richard Burton and Ian McShane. Yeah. You had, I think it was called Robbery. But you had a lot of heist movies, and they said, "Well, this is just in case. Let's get paid directly into your bank, so that we don't get the wage thing ripped off. The wage run or the salary delivery ripped off." So. Yeah. They again, it comes back to what Chris said. They create an outrage. It's problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah,
that's what it was, and they've done that. They did that with the pub. They've done that with cash to a certain extent with our wages, and now they're literally trying to find another lever to sort of pull the rug out from under cash. Yeah. But they can't just do it all of a sudden. Otherwise, there would be mayhem. Yeah. So what they're doing now is they're gradually letting the air out of the balloon. You can draw less and less out of your bank accounts. Yeah. A lot of banks don't take cash. You have to go to another place to pay in cash. So if you're a tradesman and you get paid cash for doing some of these window frames or whatever it might be, you can't bank that cash at your regular bank. You have to go to another one. Then they'll start charging fees to take cash.
I save 2s, 5s, and 1s. And I have done for years. And for years, I've bagged it up when my tins or jars are full.
Oh, yeah.
Count it all out, bag it all up, I take it to my bank and I pay it in. Not a problem.
Good,
the last
good.
time that I did that, you can only pay £5 in at a time. I'm
Really?
like, I've got 35 quid here. Or you'll have to do it, you'll have to do it in £5 at a time.
Sure, yeah.
You're a bank. You deal with money. What?
The other one, I took a check-in once because somebody owed me some money. They paid me some money. Went in there and said, "Excuse me, where do you get this money from?" So I said, "I'm an old lady."
Yeah.
And apparently, when you draw it out, my neighbour, she had to draw out some cash. They said, "Well, what do you want it for?" So next time I'm going to say, "Well, it's get down to the red light district, mate, love. I'm going
to get me a hooker."
To spend it on your colleague, but she doesn't know. But actually, Sean Hamer's come up with a good one here. I'm not sure I can read this one out, so we'll just read it, shall we? Because I'm a bit banned off YouTube.
Yeah, let's not read that out.
Yeah, so we'll just put this on for people to read for themselves.
I agree, Sean.
I 100% agree. And did you know they did a survey once? And there was and I'm doing this off the top of my head. There was a doctor's strike in the Middle East. It was in Israel actually. They had a doctor's strike, and the death rate dropped by 50%. Seriously, and it happened in America. In one of the states, they had a doctor's strike, and the death rate dropped by about 35%.
Slightly worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll try and find the real statistics and read them out on a future show.
Yeah,
but
that'd be interesting.
That's on my head, and they found that they are very dangerous.
Talk about a damning indictment. Yeah, good God. Yeah.
Actually, I talk about that on the Naughty Show on my BitChute channel because we won't be able to get away with it on YouTube. So we go on the Naughty channel, I think, and say that. That's definitely. And by the way, BitChute are now censoring, and so apparently Rumble. So Odyssey, I've also got an Odyssey channel, which has been viewed by, do you know, the amount of people that's looked at my Odyssey channel, it's
1.
2. Not many, but it is good. I put that there as an insurance. So if I don't appear next week, look at the old Fogham Hall Telegram. And of course, you know, I've got the Fogham Hall on group on... what's its name? Facebook. That's it. I knew I got that someplace. There we go. And of course, there's the website as well. Yes. But I think we're just drawing to a close, and there's loads of fantastic comments in chat, and we'll be after nothing. You know, yes, we'll look through, and Sean's been loads of people here. Oh dear. Now, hang on, this is another one. Richard D. Hall. Yes, he needs funding.
He does.
Yes.
He does. Yeah, he needs help.
And we'll let people read this, shall we?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And I think that, yes, he does need the old folding stuff. So, and he's a good man. I've met him several times. But we have his psychic on here, don't we?
We do.
Andrew Johnson.
Right, of course we do. Yes.
The man in the jumper.
Yes.
The shitty blue. I didn't have to do my shitty blue jumper, did I? What was shitty as that, was it? Yeah. Right. Is there anything?
Well, it's been very interesting tonight. Thank you, Robert. I've really enjoyed tonight.
Thank you for hosting me, Dave and Chris, and thanks for the chat. And I'll be back making a nuisance of myself next week on our side of the ball, as it were.
That's right. But we've missed Robert's comments in chat tonight. Where is he?
yeah, precisely. Yeah.
By the way, this is a good one by John Basington. I think you're in Alabama, mate, aren't you? I think you're Alabama, somewhere like that.
Alabama, yeah.
Alabama. The one who was coronated is a huge proponent of he was one of the foremost promoters of that agenda. Yes, I won't read the rest because the klaxons are already going off at YouTube.
Yeah.
Did I tell you they've taken another one of my shows down from about 2 years ago, but they haven't given me a week ban. So now it's 3 bans and 5 shows they've taken down. So all these, one more taken down, and I'm an ace broadcaster because it's 6 to be an ace broadcaster.
Is it?
Yeah. But the ace pilots, you have to have 6 kills before
6 confirmed kills.
Yes.
Yeah. So as a matter of interest, Chris, do they give you a reason? Do they just YouTube guidelines and that's it?
It's one of 2 reasons. It's medical misinformation or against community
standards.
Right.
Okay.
The last one's against community standards, so I might have said bum or tit or something. I don't know, but
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
bumpty.
It might have been the constipated vicar joke.
It could have been.
It could be, yeah. It could be, yeah.
Or it might have been I got a bit too close to talking about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Possibly.
Yes, precisely. Yes, yeah. The screws.
Yes. So we mustn't talk about things like that.
Yes, yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
After the credits go, because your screen's going to go blank, so don't worry, just keep on, okay?
Okay.
And, so, by the way, and whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh.
Yes. And we shall see you next week.
See you next week, if we're not banned.
Take care, folks.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.